your dick's not going to work the way that it worked when you were natural. There may be a time when you get on cycle where it's raging hard and things seem to be really, really great. I mean, this could never end, could it? Yes, it can, apparently. Hi, I'm John Hart. Welcome back to Mr. America Hart. It sure is great to have you back on the channel. Listen, today we are getting into this one, a little bit deeper than normal, let's say. I'm going to address some of the unaddressable when it comes to being natural versus using some steroid, anabolics, growth hormones, sports performance, PEDs, whatever you want to call them, okay? And some of the reasons why you may want to reconsider staying natural as opposed to using the drugs. So let's get into this. I'm going to give you two big reasons why. Right off the top. So you got to stay tuned for the first and the second part. You're going to get the second part by listening to the first part, okay? And that is, number one is there's a psychological aspect to getting on the sauce, okay? When you get on the sauce, there's going to be a challenge. I'll describe that in a moment. The second big one is a sexual component. Yeah, we're going to talk about that one today, so stay tuned, okay? All right, psychological. When it comes down to it, okay, I know that a lot of you guys are going to the gym and you're seeing some of your boys just boom, 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 growing by the week. You're seeing that guy in the corner over there that, you walked on in and you see him at, let's say you're weighing 185 pounds and you see this guy walking around at 260, relatively lean, massive, and he's fine, he seems fine, he's doing fine. He's got himself a pretty girlfriend too. He's fine. So how bad can these steroids be? I'm just going to use the word steroids, okay, from this point forward, as opposed to defining it out or elaborating even further. PEDs or steroids. I'll go with steroids for the rest of this video, okay? So he seems fine. The steroids can't be hurting him too bad, right? He's lost his hair. He recently shaved his head, but man, he looks even more massive now that he shaved his head. Doesn't seem bad to me. Not a bad trade-off, okay? My hairline was getting a little thinner anyway, so maybe I should consider getting on the juice. Maybe I'll have that kind of potential like he has. And hey, he's competing at the national level. Maybe there's a few of the boys in the gym that are competing, or the girls in the gym that are competing at the national level, or even local, but they're doing really, really well, heading to the national level. Some nice genetics. And maybe you too have some nice genetics. And they're maximizing theirs. And again, doesn't seem to be any kind of harm. They don't have any, they're not dropping like flies, right? Health problems. I mean, okay, granted, most of them are in their 20s or 30s, you see, and you notice. A few in their 40s, and then you got the old guys, the over 40, over 50 guys competing in the Masters shows. Not as many older women, but more men over 40 competing. You start to notice this. Doesn't seem too bad, not a bad trade-off, You want to grow fast. You have your friends speaking about how they've gained 15 or 25 pounds of lean mass. And even when they go off cycle, they don't seem to be losing too much. Well, that's because they go back on cycle, of course, before it gets too bad. And as far as you know, they're just off cycle completely. And a couple of them admitted to you that, they give themselves a little shot here and there of testosterone just for the aggro, to keep the aggression up, they say. Well, that's not really off, okay? And of course, they're not going to lose as much. So let's get into it now. The psychological aspects of this, there's two differences going on here, okay? Many in this year, at the time of this video, many fitness enthusiasts, many bodybuilders are clearly stating that they're either on cycle or they are just using TRT. Or H.I.T. TRT is the most popular, testosterone replacement therapy, because they're either semi-retired or heading away from bodybuilding and they believe, or doctors confirmed, that they have lower testosterone levels. And certainly for a long time after you stop taking your bodybuilding cycles of those high-dose steroids that were making you seemingly superhuman, there will be a price to pay of lower testosterone levels. And the choice is to either live with it until your own balls start kicking back up again, or jumping onto the TRT train, which at this point it seems like the vast majority of former users are jumping onto the TRT train and just accepting that they're going to use it for the rest of their lives. Let's keep in mind, parentheses, that we don't exactly see a bunch of 80-plus-year-olds running around that are using TRT into their 80s, 90s, and maybe in a few centenarians. There are none that we can see today that look amazing. Okay? Or even just forget about looking amazing. There are none who continue on into their 80s, late 80s, 90s without having usually a cardiac event associated with, or they're not exactly saying associated with, but concurrent with their TRT use, let's say. So it makes you go, makes you think about that one, right? That most of them are getting into their 70s and maybe even making it into the 80s, and they have a cardiac situation. And I'm not going to dissect that. I'll stay in my lane for the length of this video. Let's just go back to it. So psychologically, you look around the gym. I've painted a good picture now, right? And you notice all these guys you're using, and they seem fine. And they seem to have a great life. So therefore, you're ready to jump on the juice train, right? Jump on the gear train. You're ready to go. Ready to load up, Pump in the cement, all of that. If your liver don't quiver, your bladder don't splatter, up the dosages because it really doesn't matter. All of these kind of comments, right? To get really revved up about what you're about to do. Okay, psychologically, let's consider this. Maybe you should reconsider this if you've already thought of it. But psychologically, when you're on cycle, the word cycle is being used because there's a cycle up and there's a cycle down. And for the length of your career, once you cycle up, there's always going to be a down. And the higher you go, the further you're going to fall. Psychologically, for some of y'all out there, this is a very bad formula. For some of you out there, psychologically, it's going to bring depression. If you watch any of my videos about TRT or hormone replacement therapy, way back, there's a few of them back there. I'll put the links down below in the video description of this video. You know my heart for you guys is that I really brought out the issue of depression. And if you all have any tendency towards depression at all, I highly advise you just stay away from getting on the gear. There's a psychological component to it, and it's not generally the high point of going up. Going up, you feel supernatural. Going up on dosages, going up on a cycle. Generally, most of the guys are pretty happy, and girls are pretty happy. They see progress. Their hormone levels are supernaturally high. They're horny, right, sexually. It all seems good. It all seems good on the up part of the curve. But then, there's going to be a but then. Sooner or later, there will be a but then, okay, where that high point is too high and you're going to have to come down. Whether it's coming down and off or coming down and going to a TRT maintenance dosage, medically supervised, either way, there's going to be a low. Psychologically, the catch to this is that you have to consider is if you have any sort of a mental faculty that has tendencies to go down to a dark place. I highly advise don't go there. I've had friends in the industry for years, and I've been around for 40 years in bodybuilding as well as natural bodybuilding. Notice how I said that. Both. I was a trainer at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, the mecca of bodybuilding. I was a trainer at World Gym in Venice, Santa Monica, then Venice, then Marina del Rey, World Gym, the original World Gym, the headquarters of World Gym. I was around all of these bodybuilders, amateur and pro, and the day would come where they'd be done. And when they were done, and even before they were done, some of them just coming off cycle, there would be a dark place for some of them. And it was hard for them to come out. Some are not alive today because of it. Some did terrible things. Some recovered from it, recognized the problem and moved on from it. So I'm going to ask you to evaluate yourself and then decide. So let's reconsider that one fact. The second one, and I kind of got you with the hook at the beginning of this video. I know you've been waiting for this one. The sexual component or consequence of going on cycle, on gear, the sexual component. Now, you're going to say, John, what do you know about this? You've been a natural bodybuilder. What would you know? You're heterosexual and you've been a natural bodybuilder. There you go. So I haven't been with any men in my whole life, and I've been a natural bodybuilder. What would I know about this? Well, a lot of you know, and I'm glad most of you at this point in the video are my subscribers, most of you. And if you're not, I sure would appreciate you hitting the subscribe button at any moment in time. I'm going to reveal to you a little bit more about where I come from. You know that I'm a Christian man at this one point in my life. I've been for 22, 23 years. And right now I'm approaching 60. So that leaves, 30-something years. In my world at the time, I was just doing whatever I wanted to do. There you go. And being in the environment that I was in, as a trainer, I had a lot of friends, and both natural and enhanced, in these very popular mega gyms, you know, the mecca of bodybuilding, especially at Gold's Gym in Venice. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of exposure to some very beautiful women. That in particular, I'm going to say, I'm not proud of this. I'm not boasting on this. I'm not. I'm just giving you an answer as to how would I know anything about a pro bodybuilder and the sexual effects of the gear that they use. How would I know anything about an amateur bodybuilder? And now I'm speaking to the men. Okay, and I'm also speaking to the wives and girlfriends of those men considering getting on the gear. So I know some of you are out there in my subscriber base, and who are seeing this video as well. There's a challenge there in the sexual realm where, as a single man, I had several relations with several females. Again, you know, beautiful young ladies, and I was doing my thing at the mecca of bodybuilding, Gold's Gym and World Gym, like I said, and they were involved with, and in one case married to. So again, I'm not proud of any of that, but this is sort of part of my story, testimony, right? A little bit of an admission too, is back in the day, I'd mess with them, or they'd mess with me, and the girls. Why would a girl who was involved with a great-looking bodybuilder with an amazing physique, with tons of muscle, why would they choose at the time to be involved with me? And this is direct from their mouths. This is not me making this up, but the entire reason, and they were not leaving their boyfriend or their husband in those cases. Why were they doing that? And the answer is sexually, their men at some point in time were not exactly consistent. And what do I mean by that? To speak plainly, there was levels of impotence at times in their lives. That's it. And being natural, I did not have those issues. And so they were basically visiting with me to get what they wanted. And they would tell stories. And a couple of big names. I'm not going to get into that part because this is not about revealing or disparaging anybody in particular. It's not. It's being directed at those of you considering going down that road. So I'd like to help you on this one realm. The sexual consequences are that your dick's not going to work the way that it worked when you were natural. There may be a time when you get on cycle where it's raging hard and things seem to be really, really great. I mean, ooh, this could never end, could it? Yes, it can, apparently. There it is. Verified by the young ladies who were involved with them. Verified. And in some cases, pretty bad. We're talking about limp dick. So, what can you do here? Well, I'll put forth to you that in the bodybuilding circles, this has got to be the least talked about aspect of getting on the gear. It's got to be. I was in the midst of it. I heard all the conversations. It was only in private bedroom talk with the women involved with the bodybuilders that I would hear the actual truth. That's it. Never heard it otherwise. And I was there all day long, training my clientele. I was friends with a whole bunch of people there. Part of the reason I can stay friends with them to this day is that I don't get into name calling, name dropping, disparaging any of them, and they don't with me. So there we go. We're just friends. But in certain cases, it was pretty bad. And this is the kind of a price where I'll quote a man recently who just said to me that if he knew what he knew going back into his 20s, and he's now in his 50s, and he did use many cycles of steroids over 30 years. And he did experience impotence many times. And he said that he thanked God that he had a beautiful wife, a loving wife that never stepped out on him. He was very thankful. She was quite understanding. And it was part of, how do I say all this without revealing? It was directly connected to his income, how he looked. And therefore, he kept the image going for years. And she lived a wonderful life with him. And now he's off and done with that and on TRT. So this is one of my sources of information on the TRT aspect. But when it comes to the sexual thing, he said, if he knew what he now knows, going all the way back into his 20s and into his 30s, he never would have gotten on the junk in the first place, because the psychological ramifications of not being able to perform at times, he said, here he was with the most amazing looking physique with, ready for this, 20.5-inch biceps. And he said, his dick just didn't work. And he said, it's not like I could shove my bicep up into her. That wouldn't work. So it was useless in the moment. Talk about frustrating. Do you get the picture? So I know I'm spending a little bit of time on this because I believe that a lot of you all watching this right now have spent next to zero time discussing this, talking about this, or even understanding that there's a testosterone feedback loop that happens within your body. When you artificially raise that testosterone, whether on a bodybuilding cycle or using TRT, your natural production of testosterone, because of the feedback loop, your body's going to detect that the levels are supernaturally high. So it's going to detect that and reduce even further or stop producing altogether its own natural production of testosterone. And then you're relying on the exogenous, from the outside, coming in, testosterone. You're relying on those levels. Your body, once you discontinue using those steroids, whether you're coming off of a bodybuilding cycle and going down to TRT, or going off a bodybuilding cycle and going down to nothing and looking forward to hopefully getting your own levels back up again, which is the way it was done in the old days, by the way. Let's be real. That's the way it was done prior to these last 10 years or so. People would just get off the drugs and they'd live their lives. They'd put up with the crash hormonally and they'd move on. But going through that process, there's a price to pay psychologically and physically. And when you're not producing your own high, super high levels of testosterone, or you're not using as high from an exogenous source, it's not going to feel the same. When you get down to normal, that's the way it's going to be. When the testosterone feedback loop tells your body, do not produce any testosterone, you are forever going to stay on that TRT, or you're going to wait it out without any hormone, additional hormone, and wait out for your balls to reproduce, start to produce again testosterone. Who knows if it comes back to the levels that they were meant to be at. There's a whole bunch of thoughts on that. So, this being a very sensitive topic, I believe I've given you some food for thought, so to speak. And this one you may want to reconsider. That, do you like your sex? And if you do, and does your wife like your sex, her sex too, with you? Reconsider this. That's the best way of putting it. Yeah, so some firsthand knowledge right there for you all. I hope in some way, shape, or form this can help you out in making your own personal decisions. And if you do have somebody in your life that's about to make those kind of decisions, I hope that it helps you to be a little bit more informed. Please subscribe, like, and share this video with them. Share it with them. I'm speaking directly from my heart to you. I'm not making things up on this one. This is reality. Okay? So, before you go, off to my left, you're going to see this disc pop up. That's the subscribe button for my channel. Please give that thing a tap. Let YouTube know you'd like to be notified when I have new videos pop up. And down below and off to your left, you're going to see a thumbs up button. Please give that a tap. Let the YouTube algorithm know how much you're enjoying my videos. And throw a comment down in the comments section. Let me know how much you're liking these videos. Let me know if you have any other ideas you'd like to share with everybody else right here on this particular video. All right, that's it. From my heart to you, John Hart. I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Bye.